Hello, welcome to another episode of Daniel Lee Plastering and Rendering. And today we are tackling these lovely pillars to this finishing touches to this multi-million pound beautiful house. So you can see there, the first thing we do to apply the render is fix the beads. And on this one we are using white PVC beads, which are my favourite. They are 12mm PVC beads, complete with drip beads along the bottom, just off the floor. As these are pillars, it is more aesthetics than anything else. You see a lovely detail around the letterbox there, and some beautiful electric gates that are already fixed. So the house itself was done at a later date, by a earlier date, I should say, by a German company. And they have applied a white silicone render to the ground layer of the property. And we are now, the landscaping was done later, and that's when these gates were put in. And they are having the pillars rendered to match the rest of the house. So you can see we're using Weber one coat render to get it all nice and flat and square it all up. Then we will be applying a silicone render top coat, a white silicone render top coat to match the house. So we start by applying the base coat once the beads have set. And you can see we're also using reinforcement mesh. A bit redundant on this one because the pillars are rock solid. They're made of concrete blocks. They're not going anywhere. It's very unlikely that these will move or crack. But it's very, very good practice. So we will put some mesh, we will embed the mesh into the scratch coat. So this is just the scratch coat. Excuse me. Important as always to keep that scratch coat, which is the first coat of render, behind the beads. You see this wonderful straight edge I'm using there. For those of you in the know, you'll know it's not actually a straight edge at all. That is one of my plastic floats, but it's a large one, and it is ideal for tricky little areas like this. It does have a wonderfully sharp straight line that works very well. Nothing wrong with repurposing at all if it does the job. I'm all for that. And you see there's an intercom system, a light, and I believe that those two wires are for the intercom system, and then there's a light at the top. So there's a few, and it's not a large area, so it's a little bit awkward, a little bit faffy. I just want to make sure the render is as flat as we can, and more crucially at this stage, behind those beads. We don't want the scratch coat or the mesh to show through the final coat. It doesn't have to be too neat at this stage. You can see that's looking a little bit messy, but more importantly it is flat and behind the beads. And now I'm putting on the reinforcement mesh that I pre-cut with the holes already in it there. So we've got holes for the intercom system and the light already in place. So I'll position it. You can just stick it with your hands. That'll sort of hold it in position, and then press it in with your trowel. You want it to be nice and firmly pressed in. See, it's a little bit awkward around there, but it's working nicely. So press it all nice and firm. And then once I've pressed all that in with a trowel, I like to start methodically. So start in one corner and work your way out to avoid any air. You can sometimes get big bubbles if you're not careful. So if you start from one end and work your way down, that will help eliminate all the bubbles. Although on this it's quite a small bit of mesh there, so it's less likely to get bubbles than some larger areas. There is also a drip bead at the bottom of the pillar, so the water will run away from the pillar, but that means there's sort of a slightly thicker detail at the bottom, which I like to build out a little bit more in the scratch coat. I find that way you get a nice even, for the top coat, that goes on a bit more nice and even. So now I will put another very thin coat over the mesh, and that will be my first keying coat, first scratch coat. See there, I'm just making sure it's nice and firmly pressed in. This was actually a very chilly, windy day, but the sun came out and it was very sunny. So it's a funny weather, this one. See, they're working around the light and the letterbox on the other side. It's little things like this. I mean, 2 pillars either side of a gate. It seems sort of a simple, small job. And, you know, it's not a big job, but it is quite a faffy, tricky. It can be quite tricky. It can be quite faffy, especially to make it look just right, just nice. A little bit of a cavernous hole underneath that letterbox, but nothing we can't build out. You can see I've pre-cut the mesh, and this has jumped forward a little bit. This is once the final scratch coat has gone over the mesh, you then want to key the scratch coat with the scratcher, and that's what those wavy lines are. That gives us the best possible key for the final coat of render. Now, even though this is Weber 1 coat, you do still do it in 2 coats. However, the 2 coats can be done on the same day if you have enough time. We didn't in this instance. And that is done. Make sure obviously tidy up at the end of the day. And now the next day, we've got this beautiful fun tool, a little Ryobi pressure washer. It's quite a beast actually, but on this occasion, because the pillars have dried out quite nicely and the sun's quite strong, we give the render a soaking down. Now the pressure washer has a rinse setting, which is what it's currently on, so it doesn't blast the render to pieces. It's literally just giving it a nice controlled soak. I find it much, you can use a hose pipe, that works fine too. I just find this a bit more accurate. And I do love my gadgets. So if I get to use a little battery pressure washer over a hose, then I'm probably going to go for the battery pressure washer. I do like my gadgets. So once we've soaked them down, mix up some more Weber 1 coat. It's really, really good stuff. Really simple to mix compared to when you're adding sand and cement independently using a cement mixer. This stuff you can just get your drill out, mix it up. It gives you a very nice consistent mix every time. And you can see we've applied the render there. Basically the exact same method as before, but on this, the final coat with the pillars is arguably much easier because you can just go bead to bead when ruling off the render, which simplifies it. And then I've used my power float over it as well, and you can see Kris finishing off with the little plastic floats. So we'll just make sure this is just giving us the flattest possible surface. You could leave, that is sand and cement render. That's finished sand and cement render, which you could leave. But as the house itself has a white silicone render, we will now be applying a white primer, as so. That primer needs 24 hours to fully cure, and then we apply the silicone render. We use premium bio silicone render. There's lots of different renders out there, silicone renders, and they vary in quality massively. So it's worth asking what type of render they are. We did a job recently with a K-Rend silicone render, and I didn't like it at all. It was quite unpleasant to work with. Whereas this render's brilliant. Not only is it easier to work with, unless maybe I got a dodgy batch, but the K-Rend tub was pretty horrendous. It was sloppy water, very difficult to use. And it also didn't have any algicides in, whereas this stuff, it's got fungicide, algicide, self-cleaning properties, and more importantly, it matches the house. And that is the pillars rendered. A lovely shot of them before. And finished beautifully. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful in some way. Do drop a comment. I do listen, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.